In this video, I want to talk about the worst start ever, Rift filter. A new filter plugin by some company called, are they called Rift as well? No, no, they're called Minimal Audio. It's a bit weird that we cannot see that in the actual UI. There is no options menu to make options. And if there was an options menu, then it would be cool if it would show what the company's name was, so that it does not have to be Googled all the time. But that's just a little detail. I already tested it, so this video is not a first try video, but more of a presentation of what I think this is cool for and stuff. And the plugin is currently still for free, I think. Yes. So if you're watching this video and you better run for your life that this is still free. And if it's not free anymore, then sorry about it. But yeah. Is it worth $50? We can discuss that too. But it's definitely cool. So I have some beat here. And yeah, this is a filter, so obviously it would make most sense to not use it directly on a beat, but on some individual synthesizer. You know how it is when you compose music and stuff. But we will still use it like this for now, just to get the basic idea across. So let's just try some basic filter stuff, like moving the cutoff. And we directly hear that this is a very sweet filter sound. It's not a transparent one that tries to be as realistic as possible. No, it is one that has this sweeping tone when you move it fast. Like a little laser. And it can, when you go too fast, then it can actually clip the audio, as you can see. So I suppose that the filter type used are so-called IIR filters, which use an infinite impulse response to create the filter. And those types of filters can break out, and when they break out, they usually get very loud. So what I suppose is happening here is that when a sample goes too high, then there is some internal limiting, bringing it back to normal or something. In order to not push it too hard, I will just use this little instance of Pro L. And now it's safe. Now how does the resonance sound? And we hear the resonance sounds nice. It's just how you would expect a resonance to be. If we drive it super hard, even when we drive this resonance really hard, we cannot make the filter break out. Actually, that is a good argument against IIR filters. They would break easily in such situations. Oh, what the fuck? Okay. Yeah, I get it. Developer, when you're watching this video, I don't know which framework you used. Actually, let's find out. Yeah. I know which framework you used. You used the Juice framework, just like me. How did I find out? Well, you have sensitive mode on CTRL, and the sensitive mode does not work for mouse wheel. That's not proof that you use Juice, but it makes it very obvious that it's a possibility. And I know what you did here, which was wrong. The reason why the graphics don't update is because when your process block method has 0 samples, which is the case when the playback is stopped, or when the playback goes on but there is no audio for a long time anymore. In such cases, the process block audio buffer sends 0 samples, and what you probably do there is directly return. But I suppose that after that statement there is something that makes it sure that all these things update this graphic. What you have to do now is make sure that this thing also updates when the audio buffer is 0, okay? Then this bug is fixed. You see, at this point also 0 samples, and once we get back to a point where there is audio. Oops, wrong key. Wait, oh wait, it was this one. It will update immediately. So that's how I noticed this issue. I was at the same point at some point. With my project. But apart from that, yeah, it sounds really good so far. You cannot let the filter self-oscillate if you dial in the resonance too hard, so it's a really clean sounding filter. But one thing, just musically, when I dial in a filter, I want it to retain the volume. The volume currently rises with more resonance, which makes sense, of course. But you know, when I make an A-B compare, I want to listen to the sound, if it got better or worse. Of course, with such settings, it's hard to tell anyway if it got better or worse, because it's like a lot of stuff changed. But it could be used subtly, you know. In such cases, I would like to have an output gain knob or an auto gain feature. Yeah. By the way, I know how to make an auto gain feature for filters, and I will just tell you really quickly if you're watching this. You basically take a little sample of pink noise and let your filter run over it with different settings, and you get RMS of the dry pink noise and of the filtered pink noise, and the ratio of that is your auto gain factor, you know. So that's how you can implement auto gain for different combinations of parameters of a filter. So let's go on with the actual plugin. I like this parameter a lot. Its default value is in the middle, 0% and 100%, and minus 100% are opposite directions of the frequency that you set your cutoff to. So it's not like that the offset just goes into one direction away from it, but it's like the difference between this still kind of hints to the original frequency that was used to spread the stuff. This could be useful for automation, I guess, especially in regard to another feature that I did not talk about yet, where you can basically auto-tune the whole thing. But I don't want to talk about that yet. This is a thing I'm not sure about. I mean, it's cool that you don't have to switch with a button between low pass and high pass, but I can't really think of a situation where I would like to automate from a low pass to a high pass. Especially this transition here is very intense. It's not a very smooth transition. I wonder if it would have made more sense to let it start at the high pass, go over the notch to the low pass, so that there is not this boom, boom, boom motion in the passband. It also doesn't sound very nice, you know. This transition is super smooth, like, but this transition is like, zack, completely different scenario. In general, I think there are too many functions on this little knob. It could be hard to use. But this is only the case for this specific style. There are different styles to choose from. And I want to skip most of these and only go to the ones that I like. The peaking ones are really great. So as you can hear, this is sort of a notch filter, but it goes a little bit wider than the normal notch filter. When you dial in the resonance, it can even have some sort of bells in it, and it creates this phaserish style. This is really cool. Yeah, there's also another phaser, but I don't have to go through all of them. I think this is the section that makes this plugin worth at least the download. We will talk about the price a little later. Harmonic. By the way, if there are some crackles in the audio, it's not because this plugin sucks, it's because I'm driving the resonance hard, and all I do against that is crushing it in the limiter. Maybe I could just dial it much softer. But usually you would turn down the volume on this thing to compensate. And for that reason, as I said, it would make sense to have a gain out in here. Yeah, you can really shape some holes into the sound that feel very alive and vocalish, and has a lot of shapes that really make sense while also being very characteristic. So yeah, all of this stuff. Yeah, it's really getting annoying that I can't look at the graphic without playing back the audio, so yeah, that would be worth a fix. Of course, there is a dry wet, and it also shows when you have changed something or how much it has been changed back to normal. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, now let's get a little bit more crazy with this thing. It has two different modes. One of them is Midi and the other one is tune. The tune mode is, it really explains itself. You can just tune it by a note instead of frequency. And now in this example, it would really make sense to have something where I definitely note the chord progression. I just take the basic chord progression of Cubase chord editor for this. Shouldn't get too crazy now, since I don't want to cut this video, as I want to go to sleep soon. And I will also not add time codes for the same reason. Sorry about that, but I have a lot of stuff to do lately and I just want to make a little video, not too complicated. So let's actually make this a little bit. Okay, that sounds nice. Actually, I thought that this is way slower. That's the only little thing that I want to adjust before starting with the interesting stuff. My cat is meowing and signalizing that she likes me to go on making this tutorial. Great. Not the best chord progression ever, but good enough. So let's put it here. So now we can automate this whole thing. And the plugin was implemented in a very smart way because, as you can see, it also shows me which value I'm automating on. So I can just go ahead and look at my notes and maybe make a chord progression or underline my chord progression with this. What is this? An A. Meow. And a D. Maybe let's go down to another D just because we can. And this is a B. And then we go back to normal with a little jumpy dude. Oops, wrong plugin. Okay, now we can clearly hear how this is the same note than the bass line of this chord progression. And we have a new sound that underlines the thing. Hey, sei mal leise. Wir müssen das Video zu pausieren. Ja, ich weiß, das ist eine Platz. Wow. Setz dich doch hier hin. My cat is really cute. And now we can hear the power of why the spread knob is very intelligently implemented in this way that it spreads into both directions. Because when you actually use automation or anything to tune something to the corresponding frequencies, then by spreading it in both directions, you still get the sense that it's the same note, which is cool. Now, let's go for something different. We set this to Midi. Remove, or actually, what does it do now? It still acts in the way that it now it's a value from -60 to 60. Weird. So this is still the same parameter as we can clearly see here. It has a different string output now with this range. But what confused me is that we can still use this at all, because I suppose that now I can use Midi input to modulate the frequency. At least that's what I hope. Let's try. So we have now an external Midi in. And we have now another internal cat out. Meine Katze, die nervt aber ganz schön. Immer wenn ich ein Video mache. Yeah, there's always action in this nice little professional recording studio. Now we can see that it definitely tries to use this lowest note of these MIDI notes. Or maybe it takes this steppy upper one. I don't know. But what I actually see as the strength of this mode is that now we could just use an arpeggiator. Where is the MIDI stuff here? Yeah, okay, so we can now take a random arpeggiator MIDI insert thingy. And in Cubase, this is another type of effect, not a VST effect, but in all other DAWs that I know of, you can use certain MIDI VSTs to create an arpeggiator that then goes into the same track. Now what would be really interesting is to have actually modulator on morph and spread as well. But that would be more complicated now. I'm not even sure if I can manage to do that, because Cubase kind of sucks at providing the user with good MIDI effects. Like there is this auto LFO, but just look how it looks. Is this how you would expect an LFO to look like in 2021? Well, I don't. But yeah, let's just try. So we need to find out what is the MIDI CC number of this shit. Reset, I don't know. So we can set the controller type here, but honestly, when this thing doesn't tell me the MIDI CC number, and I can understand very well why it does not do that, because it would look like shit. And this thing does not let me drag and drop things directly on this thing, then fuck this thing. There is no other words to say. Steinberg, I love this DAW and I like some of your plugins, but most of these things are just shit. Stop wasting time making plugins. Improve Cubase. You're good at that. You're not good at plugins. Okay, let's get back to business. Phaser. And now there is this option to sort of reduce the amount of notes that can appear with this keyboard. So let's say there can be a C and there can be this A, but there cannot be the B, the D, and also not the B, but an E can be there, and the G as well, and also The F sharp? No, the F sharp cannot be there. Yeah, actually the D can be there. Actually, I have a hard time just hearing the difference between these settings. I think this is more of a thing when you use the tune mode. Not really sure what it's good for yet. It's a very subtle effect and I don't understand the workflow, but yeah. Let's put some reverb on this. And I hope you all noticed that this does not sound like Synth 1 anymore. Synth 1, one of my favorite synthesizers for its simplicity, because you can see everything you need on just one window. And yeah, when you see it the first time, all the parameters like are not very well named. ADSR, what does that mean? A beginner doesn't know. A beginner still finds it magical to turn off on these knobs. And once you know what all these do, it's still cool, but for another reason, because it just saves space. So this is a win-win for both beginners and experts. Yeah, you know, this video is not supposed to promote Synth 1 and everyone knows Synth 1 anyway, but I just wanted to point that out because this sound that you make with this thing is usually not very modern. Everything you do with this is kind of retro, and it's easy to dial in some stuff, but that's just because everything in this thing is very simple. But you just use a little bit of this thing, a little bit of this thing, and a little bit of this thing, and suddenly you are back into the future. Of course, it's cool that you can modulate the cutoff frequency so nice with a Midi control. And it's kind of sad that you cannot do the same with the other parameters without having a DAW that provides you with good Midi effects. Steinberg. But there is a bigger version coming. So let's check it out. Yeah, So this is the filter, blah blah blah. Examples. Actually, I want to go to the main page. So the filter, and then coming soon, our flagship product, and we can see there is going to be some sort of LFO also, and it can display different things. Apparently there is going to be knobs, and these little colors indicate that there is a modulation system where you can put multiple modulations on each knob. Different functionalities for different sides of the window. Some global stuff, and I don't know what's here. Maybe it's just cosmetic. A preset menu. So yeah, this thing, it even has the actual name of the manufacturer. So yeah, this thing is going to be the thing that has the modulation options that are missing in the plugin, the free plugin. So my concern about this is just when this thing that is currently $0 usually costs $50, then what the fuck is the price of this thing? Because would I spend $50 on this thing? Let's see, we have a filter. And when you are a student like me, then ProQ, which is a filter as well, but you know, with 1,000 times more filters in it. Is basically the same price. Like this is $50, and FabFilter with student educational discount is like 70 or 75 or something like that. So I'm really sorry to say, but we have to compare these a little bit. So this thing has tons of filters. This thing has also tons of filters, but you can't define where exactly they are. This thing has the option to manipulate a lot of these filters with just one knob, and this thing does not. It has no macro modulator. I don't know, maybe ProQ3 has. As you can see, I have ProQ2, but I don't think so, because I've watched the video about ProQ3 and it definitely had a different goals in mind. But you can, in this plugin, you can also just automate these all together, but the problem is that then you have I think 9 automation tracks for these 3 things, because it would change all these 3 parameters. And then you have to maintain 9 automations, which no one is going to do. So it is pretty safe to say that this plugin is not good enough for this functionality. But as everyone knows, ProQ in general is just a plugin that kind of sits on almost every track in your project if you own it, and this thing probably not. So because this is a creative plugin, you know, it is a completely different use case in that sense, and that also makes it a little bit less comparable, honestly. But you know, when a plugin has no super specific use case that you can use everywhere, then it gets a little bit harder to justify the price. If we take, for example, Serum, which is a full-blown synthesizer with a lot of functions, and it also has the spread on the filter, but they called it pan. It just has much more things in general, and it is like 200 euros. Was it 100, 105 or 200? I don't know. So it's basically this either times 2, times 3 or times 4. So if we imagine this plugin but with twice or 3 times the amount of cool features, then it would still be way less than this. So yeah, I have a hard time really justifying this price, to be honest. $50. I think I would personally pay like $30 for this. If I didn't have it already and I would see it and I would have $30 on my bank account and I would feel cool and fun and the month just started and I want to buy a VST plugin and this costs $30, then I might buy it. But for 30, I think it's not really justified. Then the next plugin that will come that has huge modulation capabilities. This looks like it could actually cost more than $50 and still be cool. How much? Therefore, I would have to know more about what it does. But it could be something between 70 or 150, depending on how cool it exactly is. Yeah. So let's sum this little thing up. I think it is a cool, innovative idea. And it's very well executed. There aren't a lot of bugs in it, and the bugs that are in it can be fixed easily. And the only feature really missing here, the only feature that really hurts by not being in this, is a gain out knob, which is really easy to implement as well. So if you're the developer, then take this advantage to, or take this moment to just solve these issues. And even if you don't decide to get lower with the price, I think it will be just fine. Some people will just pay $50, I guess. But if the box still exists then, look, that's interesting. Now there should also be 0 samples sent, but the graphics work suddenly. Interesting. Maybe it has something to do with the mode as well. So there is some inconsistency in this bug. It's not as easy as I thought. But I think it's still pretty solvable, definitely. And yeah, I wish you all the best. And this goes out to the developers as well as the producers. I think this is a tool that you can have a lot of fun with, especially with these tuning options here. I think it can be a creative tool. One thing that I would like to try, but I'm kind of running out of time now, is using this on vocals together with this Midi stuff or with this auto-tunage stuff to sort of shape some additional notes out of a performance that does not really have these notes in it. Maybe similar to throat singing or something like that, you know? That would make sense. In that case, I would actually really appreciate if there was another type of mode here for, you know, that just takes the vocal input and the audio input and sort of translates it to the current note value or something, like in autotune, and then uses that for the cutoff. That would be cool. But that would be a huge feature request. So I would understand if you decide against that. But it would make sense in this context, just to be clear. Okay, enough of that. That was a cool plugin, even though I always sound very critical, I think. That's just because I'm making music for such a long time now that at some point I think we have seen so much in the industry already that it's getting harder to stay innovative. So you really have to be hard with yourself, and I also think that in my own plugin a lot of things still suck, and I try to work them out. And we have to work together to get better, to make our software go into directions where people really get lost, where people really lose their minds and just focus on the music. This is a good approach to go into this direction, and I'm very happy that I could get my hands on this before it gets expensive. Yeah. See you all